Hey y'all, welcome to Sandy's Library. I'm Sandy, and in this video we're going to talk about my great-grandmother Lizzie Fuller Williams's death. These are old family tales about my grandmother's people, so if y'all need visuals, there are links posted in the description outlining both of my grandparents' family trees. And let me just say, before we get started, that since my great-grandmother's death date is well established, I won't be trying to verify any dates for the events happening in the area at the time. Okay, so on the 26th day of February in 1908, it was noted for being an extremely cold day with a sleet and rain mixture in Louisiana. According to Emma Thornell, Lizzie was about 6 months pregnant when she contracted a flu-like virus known then as La Grippe. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that, but it's spelled L-A-G-R-I-P-P-E. It said that Willie had gone to an election or a political rally of some sort that morning. At some point during the day, Lizzie became so ill that she had to take to her bed, as my grandma used to say. And yeah, when my grandmother and her full sisters told this story, they always made a point to point out that their mother taking to her bed was a big deal. The one thing that I remember so vividly was the love and admiration and sorrow that gleamed in their eyes when they talked about their mother, who had left them far too soon. So, anyway, by the time Willie returned home later that afternoon, it said that Lizzie was coughing up blood. Our half-cousin says it was believed that all the coughing Lizzie was doing resulted in the premature birth and loss of Lizzie's 11th child. Most likely, though, it was the virus itself that caused the premature birth of Lizzie's baby, not the coughing. But anyway, our half-cousin states that it is not known if the baby was a boy or a girl, but y'all, I do remember being told on more than one occasion by my grandmother that baby was a boy. And as far as I know, the child never received a name and was buried in the same wooden coffin as Lizzie. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Once Willie returns home and finds Lizzie, she's so sick, he's reported that he saddled a horse and headed to Eris to retrieve Dr. Hood, the family physician. Unfortunately, Dr. Hood was out making house calls. The resource says there were 3 other doctors in Eris: Holmes, Hearn, and Landrum. Unfortunately, Willie didn't find neither Holmes nor Hearn in town, and since he didn't care for Landrum, instead of paying the unfavored doctor a visit, Willie went back home. It's believed that Willie assumed he'd be able to come back in a little while and find Dr. Hood or one of the other doctors in town. My question is, why? Why? If Lizzie's coughing up blood, did Willie think it was okay to come back in a little while? I mean, really, y'all. But whether it was Willie's distrust of Landrum or his lack of understanding just how sick Lizzie really was that made him pass Landrum by in the first place, we will never know. But what we do know is that on Willie's second trip into town, he still could not find Doctors Hood, Holmes, or Hearn. At this point, our half-cousin says, in desperation, Willie went to see Dr. Landrum. Okay, so Y'all, desperation makes me think that Willie did know how serious Lizzie's condition was, or maybe she'd gotten sicker during or after his first trip to Eris. Either way, apparently Dr. Landrum knew that Willie was coming to him as a last resort, and it pissed him off. When Willie asked him to go see his wife, Dr. Landrum declares, "Why should I go? You've already been to every doctor's office in town. You prefer them to me. You just passed me right on by. And now that you can't find them, you want me. I don't think I should go." So, Willie, realizing how angry the doctor was, became apologetic, saying, "I guess I done wrong, but I thought you were supposed to save lives. And if you'll go help my wife, I sure will appreciate it, and I'll make it worth your while." Only then did the doctor agree to accompany Willie back to the farm, albeit he was still miffed at being passed over. Y'all, I could see why Willie didn't care for Dr. Landrum. This man's hubris far outweighed his compassion and desire to save lives. After chatting with Lizzie and examining her, Dr. Landrum learned that she had lost her baby. He went to his medical bag near the front door, where he retrieved a bottle of medicine and gave some to Lizzie. Then he went back to his bag in the outer room. At this point, Lizzie calls out to her husband, "Oh, Willie, get the coffee pot quick and put it on the fire. Y'all have made me drunk." Before Willie could set the pot on the stove, Lizzie began gasping for air. Willie discarded the pot and ran to Lizzie's side. As he gathered her in his arms, she passed out, or so Willie thought. He yelled at the doctor, "What in God's name did you give her? It's knocked her out." "I just gave her some medicine," the doctor said, coming back into the room. After examining Lizzie again, Landrum told Willie that she had died. The doctor went back out into the front room, unaware that he was still under Willie's watchful eye from Lizzie's bedside. Willie told everybody that he knew that he watched Dr. Landrum walk over to his medical bag, where he began inspecting several bottles inside the bag. Willie said he looked at the bottles 2 or 3 times each, and he had assumed that the doctor did this because he was trying to figure out what he had given Lizzie. Willie asked the doctor, "What in the hell did you give her? The wrong medicine?" "Of course not," the doctor replied, all the while continuing to inspect the bottles in his bag. The doctor left soon thereafter, knowing Willie was angry. Yeah, I'll bet. A day or two after Lizzie's death, it's reported that Willie went to Eris to see Dr. Hood, the family doctor, and quite possibly Doctors Holmes and Hearn too. He told them what happened and that he believed that Dr. Landrum had mixed up the medicines which resulted in Lizzie's death. Well, the doctors agreed, but there wasn't much to be done since Willie couldn't prove anything, and neither could they. Even so, Dr. Hood was said to have offered to go see Dr. Landrum. After he returned, he recounted his visit with Landrum to Willie. Of course, Dr. Landrum denied giving Lizzie the wrong meds. He told Dr. Hood, "No, I never gave her anything to hurt her. He just wants to accuse someone of killing her. He went after you and you weren't there." Dr. Hood evidently tried to explain the situation by saying, "Well, I've been his doctor ever since he moved into the area. You can't blame him for that." But Landrum stood his ground, saying, "No, but he went after Doctors Holmes and Hearn too, and just passed me right on up. When he came to me, I didn't want to go, but I went out of the kindness of my heart." Okay, y'all. Anybody who's ever taken an entry-level psychology class can see the truth hidden in this man's words. But anyway, our half-cousin says, Dr. Hood reported that he asked Dr. Landrum point blank, "Do you think you could have given her the wrong medicine?" "Mr. Williams saw you go back and look in your satchel 2 or 3 times and pick up some bottles of medicine to see if you'd given her the wrong medicine." Of course, Landrum denied any wrongdoing, saying, "Oh, I didn't do anything like that." Dr. Hood apparently told him, "Yes, you did. I'll bring Mr. Williams over here and face you with that. He saw you." So then Landrum says, "Well, I did look at it once, but I knew what I gave her." Then he presented Dr. Hood with a bottle of medicine that wouldn't have harmed Lizzie. Nevertheless, Willie always believed that Dr. Landrum mixed up the medicines and gave Lizzie something that killed her. The story ends with a short note that Dr. Hood told Willie you could go to the law, but he would swear that he didn't give her any harmful drugs to cause her death. It's reported that Willie acknowledged that he couldn't prove anything. Okay, so my question is, why wasn't an autopsy performed on my great-grandmother to determine if Landrum killed her or not? I can imagine that in 1908, in Louisiana, an autopsy wasn't standard procedure, and I wonder if it didn't happen because Willie would have had to pay for it. Even so, Lizzie was a Fuller, so if the family believed that Dr. Landrum had killed her, I think they would have helped Willie pay to find out. And y'all, I could get lost down a rabbit hole over the lack of an autopsy in this case. But I've decided not to go there, because trying to find out why an autopsy didn't happen won't help Lizzie or her descendants. At this point, I feel like my time is better served organizing the family tales. Plus, it's worth noting that because Willie told everyone he ever came into contact with that Dr. Landrum had killed his wife, it's reported that no one ever trusted Landrum after that, and he was forced to close up his practice. Yeah, karma bit him on the ass on that one. And Willie, when he would tell this tale, he would always end it by saying, "I wouldn't have him as a doctor for a horse nor a dog." Alright, so now that Lizzie and the baby are deceased, Willie needs some place to bury them. The community's RLDS congregation did not yet have a church building or a cemetery. The closest cemetery to the Williams family was the Eris City Cemetery, but the town's residents did not care for the Latter-day Saints. Here we are again, y'all. Another community in another state where the Saints couldn't seem to get along with anybody. Seriously, what is up with this aversion for these people wherever they went? And no, it's not polygamy. These people did not practice polygamy, y'all. It's also noted that at the time of Lizzie's death, the roads were pretty much impassable, by wagon anyway, which they would have needed to carry her body to the cemetery due to the rainy, wintry weather. So, I guess it's just as well that Willie and the people of Eris didn't get along. It's said that Willie got someone, and my guess would be the Fullers, to help him clear a large area of trees out behind the house where the land sloped down toward the creek. Emma Thornell was said to have washed and prepared Lizzie and the baby for burial. Emma reportedly said that the baby was almost grown, about 6 or 7 months, and it was a fully developed baby. The research supports the stories that I've always heard about Lizzie's death. She and the baby were placed in the same wooden coffin, and they were the first to be buried in the Williams family cemetery. Like I said, my grandmother said the baby was a boy, but our half-cousin said no one knows the sex of the baby. But y'all, I trust my grandmother's word on that. And there is one small additional note regarding Julia Bell and Ina, Lizzie's oldest children. It says they were both home, sick in bed with pneumonia, and were unable to attend their mother's funeral. It does give me pause to wonder, was it actually pneumonia that they had? Or did their ailments actually stem from this flu-like virus that had taken Lizzie's baby? I do wonder if Lizzie caught whatever it was that the kids had. And y'all, I do believe that Dr. Landrum killed my great-grandmother. I'd like to believe it was an accident, but considering how pissed off he was at Willie, one never knows. Nevertheless, on a cold, stormy day in February of 1908, the Williams family cemetery was established due to the death of Lizzie Fuller Williams, my great-grandmother, and her stillborn baby. And may you rest in peace, Lizzie. I'm going to make sure that people don't forget you. Okay, y'all, so this was a very emotional video for me. I don't know why I care so much more about Lizzie's plight than everyone else's, but here we are. And nevertheless, Willie's life did go on, and things are only going to get stranger from here on out. So stay tuned, because this is not the end of the Blood Ties series. There's lots more to go. So, later, Gators.